Why are you doing this? Why are you fighting this useless war that costs thousands of lives? You send your troops under bloody shadow of the cold night, hundreds of thousands of them that had been encamped near the border for months. Troops that you have insisted were there for military exercise, whereas world's leading intelligence have proved that you were preparing to invade Ukraine. Most of the world, including Ukraine, thought that the intel was wrong and that it was too dramatic. But Intel was absolutely right.
Russian forces began their attack.
Russian invasion has begun.
After 70 years of peace and prosperity, there is a war raging in the middle of Europe, and the world is taking sides. But no one wants to get involved with their own troops. Instead, they are turning to a new, invisible weapon called sanctions.
Sanctions.
Les sanctions portées.
A massive package of economic sanctions.
Sanctions that Russia has ever seen.
A weapon that is only possible because of our deeply connected world economy. Sanctions are a bureaucratic tool for economic war, and they are not easy to understand, as they might seem to be. So, we are going to explain what sanctions actually are, what is their goal, and whether or not they actually work. In the simplest way, sanctions are a bunch of decisions that governments make, bureaucratic weapon for war, which looks a little bit different from the war weapons that we have used to know. In other words, sanctions are a list of names, goods and etc. that are not allowed to come into a country that is writing those sanctions. But how these decisions actually translate into economic war, that is happening right now in the globalized world economy. The difficult part of sanctions and economic war is that it is totally invisible. You can't see it. It is not about tanks and guns, but it is having an enormous effect. So, to understand their impact, we should understand at first how Russian economy functioned and looked like before all of these sanctions. The economic disruption from Russia's war on Ukraine and Western economic sanctions were reflected immediately in Russia's financial markets. Russian GDP is expected to decline approximately by 15%. Consumer prices have climbed by 17%. March sales of new cars declined by 63%. Following the sanctioning of the CBR, the Russian ruble fell as much as 40% against the US dollar on the first day before bouncing back to a loss of about 28%. In response, the CBR increased its benchmark interest rate from 9.5% to almost 20%. Meanwhile, it is likely that Russia will be affected by recent events in two important ways. First, the sharp decline in the value of the ruble, and second, a potential shortage of imported goods will likely cause a substantial acceleration in Russian inflation. Moreover, a weaker currency, by raising prices of imported goods, will lessen the real purchasing power of Russian consumers. That, in turn, will likely lead to a sharp decline in real GDP. Another important aspect of sanctions are Russian oligarchs. There are thousands of names on sanctions lists, including Nikolai Tokarev, who runs a state-owned oil and gas company, responsible for transporting 90% of oil extracted from Russia. Dmitry Peskov, the Speaker of Kremlin, Rothenberg brothers and many more. But you might wonder why it is important to sanction these people. So here is why. Western governments see Russia's wealthiest tycoons as key enablers of Putin's reign. Sanctions targeting them are meant to impose financial pain on the Russian elite, who have stashed much of their wealth in real estate, sport teams, yachts and business investments in Western metropolises like New York, London and Barcelona. But it is unclear what impact, if any, sanctions against Russian oligarchs will have on Putin's actions. The problem is, Russia's allies don't control Putin. They are under Putin's control. In the long run, Western governments may hope sanctions will drive a wedge between Putin and Russia's allies, weakening the autocrat's power. Moreover, in order to inflict more targeted punishments against Putin's inner circle, the White House voted to launch a multilateral transatlantic task force to strip oligarchs of their yachts, their mansions and any other ill-gotten gains that the White House can find and freeze under the law. However, the main question is still open. Can all these bureaucratic tools and sanctions and etc. stop Putin? Well, since the war in Ukraine is still going on, then I assume it probably will not stop Putin. But it doesn't necessarily mean that sanctions are just a useless tool. Imposing this kind of draconian sanctions on an aggressor is important to show the world the importance of peace, unity of Western countries, and the consequences that other countries will face if decide to follow Putin's path. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the subscribe button and write in the comments your opinion about sanctions. Have a nice day.